Hello and welcome to the second video in the Historic Pubs of Wales series. Today coming to you from the Dipping Bridge in Merthyr Mawr near Bridgend. Today we're going to be looking at an old coaching inn which rather unusually got demolished some time ago.
It was called the New Inn, which is why the road we're on between Iwenny and Broadlands is called New Inn Road. This old map, dated 1799, shows that the road layout has changed a bit down the centuries, but it also shows us exactly where the New Inn used to be. It used to stand on the west bank of the River Ogmore near the Dipping Bridge, but was demolished in the 19th century when it ceased to be a commercially viable inn.
So nothing particularly unusual about that. So you may be asking yourself, why are we bothering to talk about this place? What is so historically significant about the New Inn? Well, the truth of the matter is, as unremarkable as the inn might be, the story of the man who used to run it is quite extraordinary. This inn was run by a notorious highwayman who went by the name of Cap Coch. And as it turned out, some of the events that would unfold in this place were some of the most grotesque in Welsh history. So what do we know about Cap Coch? Well, records weren't particularly good back then, and being an outlaw, he went out of his way to cover his tracks. So the truth is, we don't know a great deal about him. We know that he wore a red cap, because that's what Cap Coch means. And we believe he wore his red cap because he was in sympathy with the revolution happening in France at the time. We know that he was thick-set, that he had flaming red hair and whiskers, and we know that he could be angry and belligerent and argumentative, especially in drink. He was your archetypal brute.
We know that he ran a gang of cutthroats who used the inn to identify people who they could rob, marks if you like. Packmen transporting wool, merchants travelling alone, travellers with bulging purses, preferably ones whose ability to fight back had been suppressed by having one too many drinks at the inn. His men would lie in wait and ambush them as they made their way along the road.
And there was no shortage of people using this road back then. Don't be fooled by the fact that this is just a quiet country lane today. In the 1700s, this was the main arterial road running between Carmarthen and Gloucester, and indirectly to London. Stage coaches and postal coaches would come trundling through here, just like they had done for centuries before. This road, in fact, the straight behind me might give it away, is part of the old Roman road built in the Antonine period, the Via Julia Maritima, which formed part of our main road system in South Wales right the way up until 1825, when the turnpike diverted traffic through Bridgend. One of the things that made this inn a particular place to stop off was that if you were taking the stagecoach to London, then you had to change here and then pick up another coach on the other side of the river. That old Dipping Bridge just wasn't up to the traffic.
Incidentally, it's called the Dipping Bridge because local farmers used to herd sheep through those holes in the wall to dip them in the river below. The inn was also a natural place to want to stay the night. Coach travel was hard going in the 1700s. We know from old timetables which show departure and arrival times that on average stagecoaches only moved at 7 miles per hour. Well, most people can run faster than that. And it wasn't just the lack of speed, it was also tremendously uncomfortable. Coaches didn't have heaters or aircon, so the temperature and humidity inside the coach was the same as outside. There were no inflatable tyres. The wheels were solid and suspension was very rudimentary, so travellers felt every single bump in the road. And the roads in the 18th century were terrible, so there were a lot of bumps to feel.
The inn was also a full day's coach ride from either Carmarthen in the west or Chepstow in the east, which meant this was also a natural place to want to stay the night. As it would turn out, many of them choosing to stay the night here would never live to see another dawn, because it was at the inn that the true bloodthirsty work went on. At night, Cap Coch would sneak around through the rooms of his guests. He would slit their throats from ear to ear, steal their possessions, and then dump their bodies in the river next door. The problem with that was that bodies will wash up down here at the estuary with startling regularity. Suspicion started to be raised, but no one knew where they were coming from. It could have been anywhere, and don't forget this estuary is at the confluence of two rivers, the Ogmore and the Iwenny, which made detection doubly difficult. Not that anyone was doing any detecting. This was a very lawless time. People went missing all of the time, but there were no police back then to launch investigations. And if somebody you knew went missing while they were travelling, because communication travel was so slow back then, it might be weeks before you even realised that they were missing. And when you did realise they were missing, you wouldn't even know where it was that they vanished from or at what point they vanished. It made the whole thing of detecting and solving crimes like this a real problem back then. And it happened a lot.
Lots of people in 18th century Britain were poor, and poverty back then led to almost certain starvation and death. There was a particular problem with young men returning home after fighting in the French and Dutch wars of the period. Many returned with injuries and were mentally scarred from battle. They found it hard to find work when they came home, and they became desperate, and many turned to crime to survive. Bear in mind, these were trained killers, so many became bandits, robbers and outlaws to make a living from their violence. As a result, travel pretty much anywhere in Britain, not just in Merthyr Mawr, became a very dangerous undertaking.
But the connection was never made directly between the bodies that washed up down here at the estuary of the river and Cap Coch at the New Inn. Then one day, for no particular reason, the bodies just stopped. No one was altogether sure why. People just assumed that whoever it was who was doing the killing might have moved on, or maybe that they just stopped killing people. As it was to turn out, that was just wishful thinking.
It was later, much later, 80 years after Cap Coch is believed to have died, in 1890, that the next chapter of this story came to light. As I mentioned before, when the turnpike diverted all the coaching traffic to Bridgend, the new inn became less and less viable, until it got abandoned and became dilapidated to a point where it was no longer economic to repair. So eventually, the landowner sold it all as a quarry. It was demolished and the stone taken away to be reused in a new building in Bridgend. There was a lot of building going on in the area at this time. As much as the turnpike had been the death knell of the new inn, the town of Bridgend, just 2 miles away, was booming, and recycled stone was cheaper than freshly quarried stone, so there was a demand to buy the inn, knock it down, and ship the stone off to a new building site in Bridgend.
The story goes that once they pulled down the exterior wall of the inn, roughly where the kitchen used to be, they found a cave. And inside that cave, they found the remains and possessions of some of the people that had been robbed here. Things like cases and trunks, stuff that was not particularly valuable and not particularly easy to sell. Something was clearly not right here. So when it was reported to the local justice of the peace, he ordered that they should start to investigate around the inn by digging up the garden and the grounds to see what other mysteries may have been left underground.
No sooner than they started to dig, than they started to find graves, some of them with 2 or 3 skeletons in them at a time.
That was when the true horrors of what had been going on began to reveal itself. So they decided to extend their search beyond the grounds of the inn, into the woods and trees around the area to see what else they might find. And the more they dug, the more they found. The more graves, the more bodies, the greater the evidence of the true horrors of what had been going on here. So, what became of Cap Coch? Well, because records are sketchy, there is more than one version of how he met his end. In one version, he dies of old age at the age of 90 in 1820.
The Porthcawl-based historian Alan Morgan, whose extensive research in the 1980s probably makes him the main authority on Cap Coch, believed that he was hung on Stalling Down, near Cowbridge, having been convicted of stealing a sheep. But that's more likely to be a bit of confusion with another man from St Hilary called Ianto Frank, who was a contemporary highwayman, and it was he, rather than Cap Coch, who met that particular end. The most likely outcome for Cap Coch and what happened to him comes courtesy of research conducted by Roy Denning, who back in the 1950s noted a record of an unnamed innkeeper of the New Inn being imprisoned at Cardiff jail for pig droving. The time frame matches, so this is quite likely how Cap Coch saw out his days.
So there you have it. The New Inn in Merthyr Mawr and the story of Cap Coch. I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's been quite challenging given that the inn isn't actually here. But if you have enjoyed this video, then please feel free to share it on social media channels so other people can discover it as well. This, as I said at the beginning, is one of a series of videos about the historic pubs of Wales. So please subscribe to the channel, look out for more. If you want to read more around the subjects that we've covered today, then the story of Cap Coch is covered in this book, which is Legends and Folklore of Bridgend and the Vale, published by yours truly. So please, there's plenty more information in there about the stories and legends of the Glamorgan and Bridgend areas. And if you want to read more about the historic pubs of Wales, so not solely focused in the Vale of Glamorgan, then this is the book for you. It's called Historic Pubs of Wales, published by, me again. This book covers the whole of Wales, 89 of Wales' oldest and most interesting pubs, and all of the history and all the folklore aligned with them. That's all from me. Look forward to seeing you again. Goodbye.